Hi, Walter Box on the Box Rock and Celluloid, Bob Brack for short. I'm over Box. I'm doing a random review today. It's Ozzy Osbourne's Bark at the Moon. So this was released in November of 1983 in the US and December 1983 in the UK. And actually had two different covers. I think the UK cover had red writing on around the logo, which is what I had, and one of my mates, he had it with the blue writing. But I still think that was a European pressing. But there's actually two different running orders for this. Running order 1 opens with Bark at the Moon, and that's You're No Different. Rock and Roll Rebel doesn't appear till track 4, but the running order I always had open with Rock and Roll Rebel and then Bark at the Moon, the two best tracks on the album. So what brought me to this album originally, I might have mentioned this before in other reviews, when I was young, I would have been 14, I went on holiday for a week to France with my older brother and my parents. My middle brother stayed at home because he didn't want to go on holiday with his parents. And while we were away, there was an Ozzy Osbourne concert on TV, and I said, "Oh, could you take the Ozzy Osbourne concert?" And he was like, "Yeah," he was going to watch it. It was a half hour it was an edited version of the Salt Lake City show. And I remember when I got back, I said, "Oh, what was the Ozzy Osbourne concert like?" And he said, "Oh, some great fretwork frenzies from J.K. Lee." So I watched it, and it was a game changer for me. I hadn't seen guitar playing like that up close up until that point in my life. And I was able to kind of, what the hell is he doing? When he starts to do some tapping in his solo spot, I was like, was he picking the strings really quickly? But it was enormous help. I used to watch it over and over. And in the same concert series, there was an edited version of Bon Jovi's Live from Japan as well. And Richie Sambora was doing some really good, tapping, whammy bar stuff, dive bomb, slurring, and so on. And you just watch it over and over, and then, you start to get an idea of what they're doing. And then, of course, you try it yourselves. The biggest piece of advice I could give to anyone trying to learn an instrument is listen and watch. You will learn far more that way than any other way. It's far better than a book or a tutor or anything. I'm doing myself out of a job here. Anyway, so Bark at the Moon, I went out and bought it. And although it was an album I enjoyed, I kind of always preferred the kind of live takedowns. And I do prefer the two albums with Randy Rhoads. But this was an album on my list, and today's Halloween, and I thought, perfect, let's have a look at it. So let's just go through it. So I've got my little list here, pardon me, a few notes and stuff. So it opens with Rock and Roll Rebel on the UK European version, 5-minute 29 track. What I should say is, when I first started to do this review, I put on a CD copy I had in the car that I got from May, and it sounded bloody awful. And this is the 2002 remaster. Now, if you remember, around this time of 2002, Sharon replaced Lee Kerslake and Bob Daisley's parts off the Blizzard of Oz and Diary albums, and reissued those with replaced parts with Rob Trujillo and Mike Bordin, which caused consternation amongst fans. I actually had copies of those albums for some stupid reason I didn't realise. This, it seems that added alternate mixes. Jake's lead guitar was mixed down quite a bit. It sounds thin as fuck. And the mastering's dreadful. And I was like freaking out. I thought, God, is this album this bad? What's happened to the solos? And I realised, I looked up, I thought, God, this is the 2002 version. Do not listen to this version. I just went online and found people who'd uploaded stuff, and they actually got on the Ozzy official site. I'm not sure where you get like a really good CD copy of this with the best version. But anyway, Rock and Roll Rebel opens with that cool riff. Jake comes in with a storming lead that he pretty much did note for note on the live Salt Lake City. This is a really good song. It's got a good structure. The riff's classic. This riff actually taught me how to palm mute. A friend of mine who used to jam with, he got a copy of Guitar for the Practicing Musician. Jake Lee was on the front cover. This was just as the Ultimate Sin was coming out, and had a transcription of Rock and Roll Rebel. And of course it showed you had palm mute. I used to do a copy of the riff using my open D and G string like Smoke on the Water. Da 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 da. And I thought, that doesn't sound right. The notes are right, but then when we looked, I sort of write the notes, but when we looked, we saw the palm mute, and it took a while to get a technique down, but once you got good at it, they just opened up a world of riffs. Anyway, so Rock and Roll was a great track. The lead break in the middle is really good. You got a great outro solo. If you watch the Salt Lake City vid, Jake pulls it off perfectly note for note, and he does some top moves. He does this great bit where he leans back on a bend and then does his pick slide and slides down. He also kind of he does the plectrum tap and bends the string to, drop the trill, so to speak, and he kind of leans backwards and then rolls back. I think he rolls forwards again. It's brilliant. I mean, it's just epic stadium performing. But anyway, love that track. It's 5 minutes 29. It's a longer track, the arrangement works really well. Bark at the Moon, no need to introduce this track really. It's a classic riff. A lot of people learn it wrong, including me, but I think I've got it down now. Great solo in the middle, great end section solo, stupid lyrics and stupid video. Ozzy's vocals are okay on this. He's still, he's still starting to whine a bit, but he's always had a good ear for melody, and Bob Daisy always knew how to write lyrics that kind of fitted the vibe. Obviously, controversially, Jakey Lee is credit on this track, but not the other ones on the album. They're credited to Ozzy. Sharon basically, upon completion of recording, gave Jakey Lee a contract, meaning he had no publishing rights. He didn't sign it. She replaced his guitar parts and give him the boot. And of course, as a struggling musician, he duly signed. I think they recompensed him later, but absolutely terrible. Terrible practice with Kerslake and Daisy as well by Sharon. And you've got to criticise Ozzy really for being weak. And the whole idea of a manager is to act in the best interest of the artist, but it's also for the artist to kind of say to the manager, look, we want to do this, we want to do that. Anyway, we'll come to like the lyrics in a bit about Sharon. So track 3 is You're No Different. It's a good ballad, this. I think it suffers from a kind of keyboard. Is it Don Airey does the keyboards on this? I think. Nothing wrong with Don Airey's keyboard playing, but I think that's a problem with this album for me. There's too much keyboards on it. It kind of waters it down. I never really understood why Ozzy had keyboards sometimes, like it's awful on I Don't Know when you hear live, when you hear the fifth, the inverted fifth, on the keyboards. It just sounds shy. You need some atmos, but it's just an offstage keyboard player, roadie doing it. But anyway, nice lead break by Jake at the end, some good fills. It's a good track. And then track 4 is Now You See It, Now You Don't. This is the track's about Sharon, apparently written by Daisley. The lyrics got through. This is a really good track. Really nice riffing. Now you see it, now you don't. Nice sort of shift to the Lydian tonality. Nice melodic lead break by Jake. So obviously on the first 2 tracks he really cuts loose, but on other tracks, he's kind of playing it down more. That's side 1. I do think like Now You See It, Now You Don't's got a quite a long middle section, but another problem with this album is a lot of third verses. Every single song goes verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, twice, middle solo, and then they do a third verse. You don't need to. And when I see it's a song where you could cut a minute, but the side 1 is strong. I mean, You're On a Different. I'm kind of giving it a 6 or 7 out of 10. It's a good track. Like I say, I was kind of pleasantly surprised. I realised after the horror of listening to his 2002 version, I kind of hadn't been hearing it right. Every time I'd listened to it in the past, I've been putting that disc on in the car. So it's kind of come home to me a bit. So side 2 opens with Centre of Eternity or Forever. Now the issue I bought of this album was always called Forever. But in the chorus it goes, Journey to the Centre of Eternity. Eventually that title was sort of formalised as Centre of Eternity, but I always knew it was Forever. This is to do with like US and European versions. This track's 5 minutes 25, and it starts on with a very long, kind of keyboard intro a la Mr. Crowley. You could basically cut that and we'd cut the track to 4:10. Jake does a nice song in the middle. He does really cool fills, and he does some great stuff at the end. He does this crazy, crazy intervallic thing with his thumb. It's alright, this track. I think it's let down by slightly whiny sort of Ozzy nursery rhyme style melodies, but it's okay. Then you've got So Tired. This was the track we probably all hated when we were kids because it's a drippy ballad, but if you're going to do a drippy ballad, it's pretty effective. I actually prefer it to Goodbye to Romance. I've never really liked that track. It's actually got a really nice string arrangements on this. I think Lewis Austin did it. It's 4 minutes long, decent arrangement. Classic tale of this is J.Q. Lee was in the studio and Ozzy was like, can you do a solo like style of George Harrison, more like George Harrison, because Ozzy's a big Beatles fan, and like J.Q. Lee, he's got a big attitude. He's like, if you want fucking George Harrison, go get George Harrison. But Jake's solo's nice, he plays for the song. I think he does a good job. Then you've got, so I'll get that track of 60. Then you've got the next track, Waiting for Darkness. I think this is one of the really good deep cuts on this. Again, it's a bit annoying keyboardy. You know, Jake's come up with this great double-picked digga-digga-digga type riff. That's a trademark of Jake. He's kind of copied Randy really with that, doing that double-picked thing, which is actually a hard technique to do across chords. You know, typically do it across sus2 chords, Jake. But it's really good. Again, the only thing that lets it down, really, keyboard heavy, and then it's just got this lengthy middle section, the third verse, and a bit of chopping, you know, would have got this down a little bit, I think. But I quite like the drama of this. I think Ozzy's melody and stuff is really good. And then at track 8, the album finished with Spiders. I think it was Spiders in the Dark was an extended title of this. I never used to like this track, but listening to it today, although it's kind of Spiders, you know, it's got that Alice Cooper vibe, but it's got a nice, cool sort of riff from Jake, good bass. He does a really nice solo in the middle where he hits a really wide Uli John Roth vibrato, and he does a nice little sort of pull-off thing that reminds me of Uli, and obviously Uli John Roth was a big influence on Jake, along with Tommy Bolin, I think probably Hendrix Blackmore and guys like that. Again, this track could probably be cut down a little bit with this third verse thing. So that, you know, the 8-track album was... I'm not sure, it was about 38 minutes, but the weird thing is they had 2 different versions of this. So one, the US version had a track called Slow Down, and I'm not sure, I think it was maybe Spiders was the track that we got. Now Slow Down's actually really melodic, and it's only, let me check, it's only 420. So again, this could have been cut a little bit with that third verse thing, but it's actually a really melodic track. Ozzy sings a really upbeat melody on it, and I like it. It's solid. And then they did a B-side for Bark at the Moon, I think, called One Up the B-side, and that's only 3 minutes 25, and it's quite a good party metal track. So these tracks could have, you know, if they're put on the album, it would have made the album about 47, 48 minutes, a bit too long for vinyl at that time. But, you know, with some better arranging, you could have got the album under 45 minutes and fitted all this on some vinyl. But anyway, how does this kind of hold up with other 1983 albums? Well, you know, I mean, I think Thunder and Lightning by Thin Lizzy's got more excitement on it with John Sykes, his contribution. You've also got Metal Half Quite Right. I'm not that into that. There's Motley Crue Shout at the Devil. And of course, Holy Diver by Dio does whoop its ass. I'm going to sneeze, sorry. Pardon me, hay fever. But I do think it's a decent record. I wish it was the 10 tracks really, and I wish I'd done with arrangements. I'm kind of giving it a 7. I think I kind of prefer the Ultimate Sin in a way, because I like Jake soloing more. I think the Ultimate Sin's a better album it's given credit for, but they're both around the kind of 7 out of 10 thing. They're not great records, they don't match the originals, but it's great to hear Jake sort of stamp his authority, and there is some quality songwriting on here. I think the production's, okay, the guitars are a bit thin, it's a bit sort of, you know, kind of flat. There's a lack of energy at times on this, and I'm quite surprised by a lack of groove in the drumming. Tommy Aldridge is on drums. I think this is the only album he did with Ozzy, but at times the beats and the locker with Bob Daisy is quite flat. If you listen to You're No Different, it's very on the beat, duh, 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 and it needs to be more behind the beat and have more swing and a bit more groove. But obviously tracks like Bark at the Moon suiting better. Again, it's this thing where this was much better live to me. Check out the Salt Lake City video. The Simply Do Forever, Rock and Roll Rebel, Bark at the Moon are on that. Okay, so there rests my Bark at the Moon random review. And remember to share and subscribe, and I'll see you again. Cheers.